Ready for another deep dive? This time, we're tackling the eye of the master, a fascinating look at the social history of AI.
It's not just about the tech itself.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye. It seems like this book digs into how AI reflects human history and our social structures.
Exactly. Matteo Pasquinelli really goes deep, like how AI isn't just code, but a mirror reflecting us.
Okay, so where do we even start unraveling this?
Well, he jumps right in with this idea of AI and the division of labor.
Division of labor. Okay.
And get this, uses self-driving cars as a prime example.
Self-driving cars. I wouldn't have immediately thought of that as a labor issue.
Right. It seems counterintuitive. But think about it, the push for self-driving vehicles, it actually shows how complex these jobs are.
Jobs like truck driving, you mean?
Yeah. We often dismiss those as like unskilled.
But it's not that simple, is it?
Nope. Driving, it involves split-second decisions, navigating all these social interactions on the road. It requires so much experience, intuition, even cultural understanding.
It's like we take all that for granted until we try to teach a machine to do it.
Totally. Like, remember when Elon Musk admitted that generalized self-driving was way harder than they thought?
Oh, yeah, he was pretty upfront about that.
AI has a long way to go to truly replicate human driving, especially that social cooperative aspect of it.
So this whole pursuit of self-driving cars, it's revealing a lot about the hidden intelligence in everyday tasks.
Exactly. And it leads us to that central metaphor of the book, the eye of the master.
Okay, eye of the master. I've got to ask, what's that all about?
So Marx, he used that term master to describe the power structures, like those embedded in machinery during the Industrial Revolution.
Right, the factories, the whole
Yeah,
system.
but today, Pasquinelli argues, those AI algorithms, they're the new eye.
Controlling labor in like a digital factory?
Exactly. Think about platforms like Google, Facebook, all those gig economy apps.
Are you saying those are like the new masters?
In a way, yeah. They manage, extract value from all of us, from millions of users. And they use those algorithms to control how we work, how we share information.
It's like those algorithms are running the show behind the scenes, shaping our online experiences without us even realizing it.
That's exactly what Pasquinelli's getting at. And this connects directly to the core argument of the book, the labor theory of automation.
Labor theory of automation. Okay, I'm going to need you to break that down for me.
Basically, it says AI. It's not just this neutral product of science, you know?
Like, it's not just inevitable progress.
Right. It's deeply shaped by the way society is structured, especially our division of labor.
So you're saying how we've organized work in society is influencing how we design AI.
Exactly. He even traces this back to, thinkers like Charles Babbage, Ada Lovelace, even the Ricardian socialists.
Wow, so these ideas have been brewing for a while, but how does this all connect to ancient history? I saw something about ancient algorithms in the notes.
That's where it gets really interesting. Pasquinelli, he takes us way back in time to show that this algorithmic thinking, it existed long before computers.
Wait, really? Like, how far back?
Think ancient India, the construction of those Agnicana fire altars.
Hold on. Constructing a fire altar, that's algorithmic. I'm picturing, like, fire and rituals.
I know, right? But those rituals, they involve precise plans, instructions, even a kind of looping structure.
So they're like programming with bricks. That's wild.
Right. It really challenges what we think of as an algorithm.
Totally. Speaking of algorithms, have you ever thought about where that word even came from?
Oh, yeah, it's a fascinating story. It comes from, well, it's a Latinized version of the name Al-Khwarizmi.
Is that?
He was this Persian mathematician back in the Middle Ages, and he introduced the Hindu-Arabic numeral system to the West.
You mean the system we use today with zero and all that?
Yep, that one. And that shift from Roman numerals was huge. It made calculations way more efficient, opened the door for more complex algorithms to be developed.
Wow, so it wasn't just a math change. It really impacted how we solve problems and even, like, do business.
You got it. From the beginning, algorithms have been linked to economics, to managing resources, trading.
It's amazing how these abstract math concepts have such real-world effects.
And that connection between algorithms, labor, and social control, it just becomes even more pronounced with the Industrial Revolution and, the rise of machines.
Which brings us to, let's see, the machinery question that's up next on our list.
This is a really interesting part. It explores this big debate in the 19th century all about the impact of machines on labor.
Sounds familiar, like our anxieties about AI today.
Exactly.
Right.
And it has striking parallels. Back then, People were worried about, well, technological unemployment, just like we are now.
So they feared that machines would replace their skills, take their jobs.
Yes, exactly. And there was this growing awareness of the alienation of knowledge. Like, specialized skills were being embedded into machines, so workers became replaceable.
It's like their knowledge was taken from them and put into those machines.
Exactly. And this raises some important questions, like who controls that knowledge? Who benefits from this automation? Pasquinelli, he contrasts Marx's view, where labor is like primary to technology, with the views of those Ricardian socialists like Thompson and Hodgkin.
So Marx saw technology as coming from social relations, while the others focused more on the value of knowledge itself.
Exactly. And those debates from back then are still relevant today as we grapple with the implications of AI, automation, and who controls information.
It's incredible how history can provide these insights into our present-day challenges.
It really does. And speaking of history, let's dive into the development of artificial neural networks.
Neural networks. Okay, now we're talking. That sounds straight out of science fiction.
Right. But it all started with attempts to model those biological neurons, the ones in our brains.
So scientists were actually trying to build like a digital brain.
In a way, yes. Researchers like Warren McCulloch and Walter Pitts, they were inspired by how those biological neurons work.
But the brain is incredibly complex. How did they even start to tackle that?
Well, they proposed these artificial neurons as like simplified logical units, hoping to replicate how our brains process information and, learn.
The brain is more than just logic, right? Didn't they run into some roadblocks?
They did.
Yeah.
And that's where this influence of Gestalt theory comes in.
Gestalt theory. Okay, remind me what that's all about again.
It emphasizes that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Oh, right. Like how we perceive the world. We see patterns, not just individual elements.
Exactly. Like recognizing a face instantly, not by analyzing each feature, but seeing the whole pattern.
Okay, but how does that apply to, building a digital brain?
Well, that was the challenge. Could these networks, built from simple logical units, really account for that holistic, pattern-recognizing nature of human perception?
It sounds like a clash between trying to break things down into simple parts versus seeing the whole picture.
It was a big debate, especially between Warren and McCulloch, who really championed that computational approach, and Wolfgang Kohler, a leader in Gestalt psychology.
Sounds intense. So who won that debate?
It wasn't really a clear win for either side, but then John von Neumann, that brilliant mathematician, he offered a potential solution.
So he kind of bridged the gap between those two approaches.
Yeah, he acknowledged that those purely logical models had limits and suggested that maybe incorporating statistical methods would help us understand how brains learn and recognize patterns.
So that's where statistical methods came in, like a new way to approach the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It paved the way for, Frank Rosenblatt and his work on the perceptron.
The perceptron. That's a name you hear a lot in AI history. So was he directly influenced by von Neumann's ideas?
Absolutely. He was inspired by a whole bunch of sources, McCulloch and Pitts, Hebb's theories, and even, surprisingly, Friedrich Hayek.
Wait, Hayek, the economist, what does he have to do with the neural networks?
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. Hayek, in his 1952 book, The Sensory Order, he actually proposed a connectionist theory of the mind.
A connectionist theory of the mind. What does that even mean?
He argued that our nervous system, it basically functions like a classification system. He described what we now call a classifier algorithm, way ahead of his time.
So Hayek, an economist, was thinking about the brain like it was a pattern-recognizing machine. That's wild.
It is. But he wasn't trying to, build AI. He was really interested in understanding how complex systems work.
Like, how do they achieve order without someone controlling everything?
Exactly. And he saw pattern recognition as crucial for navigating that complexity. And this, he thought, applied to both the brain and
The free market.
You got it. He argued that the price system, it's like the nervous system. It acts as this distributed information processor.
So he was basically using this concept of neural networks to support his views on economics and free markets.
You could say that. And it highlights a really important point, how our understanding of AI is often shaped by our own social and political beliefs.
It's like AI isn't this objective thing. It's influenced by the people who create it.
Right. And it makes you think, whose values are baked into these systems?
Exactly. But it's also amazing how these different fields, neurology, psychology, economics, they all converge in the development of neural networks.
It's truly interdisciplinary. And as we move further into the eye of the master, we'll see these connections become even more intertwined.
Wow, those connections between economics, AI, and even Hayek, that's fascinating.
It really highlights how AI is intertwined with so much more than just the technology itself.
Right, like our values, our beliefs, it all plays a role.
Exactly. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about how these neural networks actually, evolve.
Evolve. You mean like get smarter over time?
Yeah, but more than that, they become tools for, pattern recognition.
Pattern recognition? That seems pretty crucial for AI.
It is. And this shift is tied to the rise of, statistical methods in AI.
Statistical methods. Okay, now you've got my attention.
So researchers were hitting a wall, you know, trying to build AI based just on logic, rules.
Yeah, like a human brain isn't just a giant calculator, right?
Exactly. And that's where statistics comes in. This idea of multidimensional analysis.
Multidimensional analysis. Okay, sounds complicated.
It is. But basically, it let researchers analyze data in a more, flexible way.
Moving beyond just rigid rules.
Exactly. It's a more probabilistic understanding of intelligence.
So instead of just programming machines to follow rules, they were teaching them to learn from data.
Yes. That's machine learning in a nutshell. They could learn from experience, adapt, make predictions based on those patterns.
That's a huge shift, isn't it? From programming to learning.
It is. And this chapter, it really captures that transition, like the key players, the ideas, all of it.
And didn't Rosenblatt's perceptron play a role in this?
Absolutely. He actually used statistical methods in his work.
So the perceptron was learning from data.
Yeah, he used this system of weighted connections that could be adjusted based on the data it encountered.
So it's like the network was rewiring itself as it learned.
Exactly. And those weight adjustments, they were based on statistical algorithms, allowing the perceptron to get better over time.
It's amazing how such a simple idea, like adjusting weights, led to this whole machine learning revolution.
It is. And it was fueled by, the increasing availability of data.
So big data was crucial for this.
Totally. Without all that data, those algorithms wouldn't have been nearly as effective.
It's like all these things coming together. New ideas, new tech, new data. A perfect storm for machine learning.
Exactly. And this chapter really captures that moment in AI history perfectly.
It's fascinating to see how history, gives us this roadmap for understanding technology today.
It does. And the book is full of these fascinating connections. For instance, the development of these statistical methods in AI, it was connected to the rise of psychometrics.
Psychometrics, isn't that like IQ tests and stuff?
Yeah, measuring intelligence.
But how does that connect to AI?
Well, both AI researchers and psychometricians, they were both interested in, quantifying intelligence.
Trying to measure something as complex as intelligence.
Right. And that led to developing these sophisticated statistical tools that were later used in AI.
It's amazing how those tools from one field can jump to another field like that. Unexpected applications.
It is. And the book points out lots of examples of this, like how AI has been shaped by all these different fields. Psychology, statistics, economics, even philosophy.
AI is truly interdisciplinary.
It is.
Yeah.
And it highlights how AI isn't just this product of computer science, but is deeply connected to, the history of ideas, social practices, even political ideologies.
Wow. Okay. I need a moment to process all of that.
It's a lot to take in. But that's what makes exploring the history of AI so fascinating. It's not just about the tech itself, it's about us, about understanding ourselves.
It's a reflection of who we are, our values, our anxieties, all of it.
Exactly. And as we move into the last part of the Eye of the Master, we'll see how these threads come together to help us think about the future of AI.
Okay, I think my brain needs a reboot after all that. We've gone from self-driving cars to ancient rituals to IQ tests, and now we're going to talk about the future of AI.
That's right. The Eye of the Master takes us on quite a journey.
So what does Pasquinelli see on the horizon? What's next for AI?
Well, he argues that we need to shift our focus.
Shift our focus from what to what?
From just thinking about technical efficiency and, economic productivity.
So not just making AI smarter and faster.
Right. We need to think more about, the values we're embedding in these systems.
Making AI more humane, aligning it with our goals as a society.
Exactly. It requires a deeper understanding of, the social and political side of AI.
Like who controls it? Who benefits?
Exactly. Those are the tough conversations we need to be having.
We can't just let the technology decide the future for us.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point, the limitations of AI.
Limitations. But AI is getting so advanced so quickly.
It is. but it still lacks that adaptability, that flexible intelligence we see in humans.
So we're not quite in that sci-fi world of robots taking over.
Not yet, anyway. Pasquinelli points out that AI is really good in specific areas, but it struggles to, generalize its knowledge to new situations.
It's good at crunching data, but not so good at understanding what, human relationships or something.
Right, those nuances of communication, social interaction, all of that.
Okay, that makes sense. But it also makes me wonder, what are the limits of AI, really?
That's a question AI researchers are trying to figure out right now. Are we hitting a ceiling with deep learning?
And if so, what comes next?
Exactly. Pasquinelli suggests we might need entirely new paradigms, ones that go beyond our current reliance on just statistics and massive data sets.
So the future of AI might look totally different than what we imagine today.
It might, which is why it's important to stay informed, engage in these discussions, and be open to, new ways of thinking about intelligence itself.
The book also talks about this idea of automation of general intelligence. It sounds kind of like a contradiction.
It does, doesn't it? But what Pasquinelli is saying is that machine learning, it's actually a new stage in the automation of knowledge work.
Automating knowledge work.
It's like taking those principles of automation that used to apply to manual labor and applying them to learning itself.
So we're teaching machines to learn how to learn.
Yeah, it's automation of automation.
Right.
And it has big implications for, everything. The future of work. Who has knowledge? Who has power?
It's both fascinating and a little scary. What happens when machines can learn faster than us?
That's the question, isn't it? Pasquinelli argues that we need to start thinking about the consequences now before it's too late.
So what can we do? Where do we go from here?
Well, he advocates for a more critical approach to AI development, moving beyond just the hype.
Not just getting swept up in the excitement or the fear.
Right, thinking deeply about the values we want in these systems.
So building a better future with AI?
Exactly. And that involves transparency, demanding access to the algorithms, the data that are shaping our lives.
So we can understand how these systems work, who they're really serving.
Exactly. It also means holding those tech companies and governments accountable, pushing for regulations that protect our rights and interests.
Making sure AI serves us, not the other way around.
Precisely. And that takes all of us. Citizens, policymakers, researchers, everyone working together.
This has been an amazing deep dive. We've really explored AI from all angles, its history, its impact on society, and what the future might hold. It's mind-blowing how much this technology is intertwined with who we are as humans.
It is.
Yeah.
And the eye of the master really challenges us to think critically about that connection, to see AI not just as lines of code, but as a reflection of ourselves, our values, and our choices.
It's a reminder that the future of AI isn't predetermined. It's something we create together. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the eye of the master.
It's been a pleasure.